panelists are preparing their answer, just Bolton Heart, the program you were talking about, is some of the, I got the impression listening to you yesterday that part of your work has been about exactly trying to keep on the right side of that space. Is that? Yeah, exactly. We see ourselves as, it's about ideology also. When you, it's about your values, and when you ask the community, what do you want? What do you do in a community where, I don't know, 70% of the community has a xenophobic idea about But actually, I think Lynn was talking about this in the break. I just caught the tail end of a conversation about that authenticity, about where you're coming from. Would you like to respond to that as a kind of about this notion of the community-driven model? How do we make sure that we're doing it on our own terms, not as a kind of a
the authenticity of it?
Question,
I think your question is really good, and it's something I think that within the kind of context of work that we all do that we struggle with, right? Because at a very fundamental level, as you say, if you're dealing with a community which is 70% xenophobic, where does your work sit within that context when you're asking them what they want to do? So I think there's two things that come. There's about this authenticity of what you're doing, and that you are there to have genuine conversations. I think I think if you step outside of that, then you run the risk of drifting very much from your mission. But I think that the other piece is that it's unavoidable to. We need to acknowledge that in many, you mentioned the consumer society piece, it's as consumers that we make choices. That, when we choose to, that is a fundamental, our audience are consumers. They may consume in a different way, but they are, and that's the, so remembering that in terms of what your audience desire and what they need. So I suppose what I'm trying to get at is somewhere in the middle, there is something that a community or an organization can define that they need, that is a fundamental, that maybe doesn't speak necessarily to that xenophobic place, or doesn't speak, but also speaks and connects with the mission of your organization. And the only way to get to that is through genuine conversation, and usually really good facilitation as well, in my experience, which is critical. Something actually that hasn't come up today, but it's critical to the process that we're all doing, is really good facilitation. And
managing expectations, we talked about.
It's a really important question, and I think basically it's about the design, but it raises this something that's been coming up for me a lot, again because of what's going on in the U.S., but also in relationship to my organization and the way in which we have changed. I just got an email actually from one of my board members who is a wealthy white man, and he attended the YBCA 100 Summit all day, and he's an incredible human being, and he was comfortably uncomfortable as a white man because of the nature of the conversation. And we've been talking a lot about how it isn't the belief, it's what underlies the belief. And it's what we do as an institution to unearth and help us to grapple with what underlies those beliefs. And if there's any criticism of my organization, it's that we're not inclusive. We're all about progressive politics. Our point of view is very clear. And, if you have a different point of view, maybe you're not invited. And so it's my hope that we can design processes and opportunities for people who do not have the same point of view, so that we can understand what underlies those differences.
I'm going to take one more question, if that's all right, because there was well done, that woman. You remembered that. You've got the microphone and you're ready. We've now got this thing flashing at us like a time bomb. So I'm going to ask you to be very succinct in your question. And guys, I'm asking you to do that test of the least possible words answers. So please.
Weber. Can you hear me?
Yes, can.
I'm from the Swedish Arts Grants Committee. Could you elaborate a little bit on how you're involving the artists in the strategic process of finding the relevant topics and the themes that you've been elaborating on? Do you have any best practice examples, for instance?
Well, it's quite interesting in a way. Actually, do you want to respond quickly? And I don't know whether in BMC you've done any working with curators and things about kind of very briefly, I don't know.
Yeah, we have. I mean, part of that was kind of exploring their artistic vision and the fit with all of these other things that we were talking about. I was just going to highlight that you can download a copy of the notebook from the programme from our website, and it's got some of the tools that we were using, including sort of spectrum of engagement that comes from a company called Morris Hargreaves McIntyre. They facilitate a lot of conversations around that, about the degree to which it is about delivering and expertise and the degree to which it's about empowering and driving social change and where you sit within that. So there was quite a lot of conversation about how driving forward some of these can help them achieve their artistic visions through the change.
Yeah, I mean, in our organisation, so that Leonardo group that I mentioned, there's a huge art and design community representation within that, which drives our themes. We also do something a little bit like what Deborah talked about opening the front door. We're open until 8 p.m. every evening, which is obviously critical because if you want 15 to 25-year-olds to come. But it's also really important for the art and design community, and we do something called mission-related groups. So when we started, there was a number of groups throughout the city, art groups, data groups, technology groups, Quantified Self, who were meeting in the back of pubs and in bookshops and cafes, and a lot of artist groups. We give them the space for free, and they meet there. And as part of that meeting process, one of our team engages with that group, and they work in bringing the themes and the ideas. So it's a way of having our artistic community in our space all the time, directing programming and bringing in their own audiences. And that model has been really effective in helping us to grow that community and get their voices up to the themes. Yeah.
And it's the same with the YBCA 100 framework. The framework is really designed to engage more and different kinds of artists in the process of defining what our organization is doing and helping us to understand what artists and art projects we want to support.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, I hope you feel all suitably inspired. I'm feeling very excited about all these new tools and models that I'm going to turn into a shape that I can use in my organisation. I'm sure now that it's time to stop questions. You've all got more questions you can thought of, and I think everybody's here for lunch. Yes. It's a walking lunch, I believe. Is that correct? So back where you were yesterday, wandering, having chats with people.